You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
Sunday mornings had a rhythm in our house. Coffee brewing slow, the clink of Lacey's spoon stirring almond milk into her mug, soft jazz humming from her Bluetooth speaker. Normally, she'd be at the table with her planner open, writing in perfect, slanted cursive about client calls, yoga classes, and color-coded reminders I never fully understood. But that morning, the house was unusually quiet. I woke up alone, the sheets still warm on her side, and the scent of her new perfume lingering faintly in the air. I figured she'd gone out for a walk or a run, something she'd started doing more lately. First, I thought it was stress. Work had picked up, she said. More clients, more deadlines. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, stretched, and went downstairs in search of coffee. My phone was on 6%. Of course. Charger upstairs. Lacey's home office was always tidy, always organized, and her charger was always plugged into the wall by her desk. I didn't hesitate to go in. Her laptop was open, the screen still lit up. That's when everything changed. At first, I didn't even process what I was looking at. My brain tried to rationalize it, make it fit into the version of reality I'd trusted for years. It was a photo, a high-res one, probably taken with a newer phone. There was Lacey, unmistakably her, in a black swimsuit that hugged her curves like it was made for her. Her hair was up in that casual knot she always did when she didn't want to try too hard but still wanted to look put together. She was by a pool, sunlight catching the water, glinting off sunglasses she didn't own 2 weeks ago. But what made my stomach drop wasn't the setting. It was the man beside her, shirtless, tan. His hand resting on her hip with the kind of casual and asterisk Macy you only use when it's not your first time. And then there was the kiss. Not a peck. Not friendly. It was angled, relaxed, familiar. I stepped closer without thinking. In the corner of the image was a timestamp. The photo was taken Thursday 3 days ago. The same day she'd called me from her hotel room in Tampa. She'd said the meetings had run late, that she was exhausted, that she missed me. I stared at the screen for a long time. Felt like everything around me went silent. The ticking of the hallway clock, the occasional creak of the pipes, the sound of a lawnmower outside. All of it faded. I should have closed the laptop, should have left the room and pretended I hadn't seen it. But I didn't move. I don't know how much time passed before I heard the front door open. Keys in the bowl. Soft footsteps up the stairs. I stood still like I was made of stone. When Lacey walked into the room and saw me, her body jolted mid-step. Her breath caught. It was only for a second, but it was enough. Enough to see the flash of fear in her eyes before she composed herself. She tilted her head and let out a breathy little laugh. "Oh," she said, walking over casually. "You're in here." I didn't look at her. I didn't say a word. She glanced at the screen, then back at me. "That?" she asked, her voice light, like she was talking about a funny tweet. "That's not what it looks like." I blinked slowly, still said nothing. "It's from the hotel pool," she continued, reaching for the trackpad like she was about to close the window. "There was this guy, God, he was so pushy. He kept asking me to take a picture with him. Said he'd tag me or something. I didn't want to be rude. I figured one photo wouldn't hurt. I turned to look at her then. Not fast. Just enough to let her know I was listening. She kept going. I mean, yeah, I should have said no. But you know how people can get. It was nothing. He kissed my cheek. You know how some people do that? In Europe or whatever. I stared at her. "Is that where you were?" I asked, finally speaking. "Europe." She blinked. "What? No. The timestamp says Thursday, right? That was the day of the seminar. I told you about it, remember?" I nodded slowly. "Tampa. Yeah. And this was taken at the Marriott pool?" Her smile faltered. "No, it was the Hilton, I think. There was a change last minute. They moved some of the panels. I didn't push. Not then. I just watched her, and for the first time in years, she looked small to me. Not physically, but smaller, like a version of herself I didn't recognize. Her voice was too careful, her smile too tight. It wasn't just the words she said. It was how rehearsed they felt, like she'd practiced this moment in her head. She let out another laugh. Nervous this time. You're being really quiet. I didn't answer. After a few seconds, she crossed her arms. You don't believe me? I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. I looked back at the laptop, then at her again. Why was the file in your downloads folder? What? The image. It wasn't from an email. It was downloaded. Saved. Like you wanted to keep it. Her eyes narrowed. I don't know. Maybe I clicked something by accident. I don't remember. The silence between us stretched long. Too long. She shifted from one foot to the other. I don't know what you think this means, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. And in that moment, I realized she was still hoping I'd let it go, that I'd accept the half-story, that I'd let her explain it away with just enough vagueness to keep the foundation from cracking. But it was already cracked. Hell, it was already halfway to rubble. I nodded once, slowly. Okay, I said. She blinked. Okay, I'm gonna grab the charger. That's all I came in for. She looked confused, almost relieved. Right? Okay. I unplugged the charger, wrapped it around my hand, and walked past her without another word. As I made my way down the stairs, I could feel her watching me, but I didn't look back. That image was burned into my mind now. It didn't matter what she said. It didn't matter how soft her voice got or how innocent she tried to sound. The truth was loud, and it was already speaking. It's strange how quickly the mind adjusts to suspicion. How fast the gears shift from trust to calculation. After that morning in her office, something in me broke. Or maybe shifted is the better word. I still went about my day, answered emails, walked the dog, made lunch. But it was all on autopilot. Underneath, my brain was doing something else entirely. It was dissecting everything, rewinding time like an old tape recorder and listening for static I'd missed the first time around. That photo had been the match, but the fuel was already there. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. The first memory that came back was the wardrobe change. About 6 months ago, Lacey came home with a pile of bags from some boutique I'd never heard of. Felt like reinventing myself, she said, holding up a pale silk blouse I didn't recognize, tag still on. The firm's pivoting toward a younger market. I have to stay sharp. I hadn't thought much of it then. Lacey always dressed well. She worked in client relations, after all. But this was different. She started buying clothes she never wore around me. Tight dresses that still had tags weeks later. Shoes she said weren't practical for the office. Lingerie I hadn't seen outside her closet. Then there was the perfume. The scent she'd worn since college. Light, floral, something nostalgic, was suddenly swapped out for something sharper, bolder. It lingered longer in a room. Said, look at me. Ask me who I am. And I had. New scent. She'd shrugged. Got a sample. Thought I'd try something different. But it wasn't just one bottle. There were 3 now on her vanity. All different brands. All with names like Midnight and Tempt. Next came the gym. Lacey had always been active, but her sudden obsession with toning and calorie tracking hit out of nowhere. She bought a new fitness tracker, switched to kale smoothies, and started waking up at 5 a.m. for bar classes. For stress, she claimed. Work's not that bad, is it? I asked one night as she weighed chicken breast on a scale. She smiled without looking up. Just want to feel good in my skin. Don't you want me to? Of course I did. But the question hadn't been about me, had it? After the gym came the new password. Lacey had never been secretive about her phone. It used to lie face up on the coffee table during movie nights, buzzing harmlessly with group chats and Pinterest alerts. But then she started keeping it face down. Notifications disappeared. One morning, I picked it up to hand it to her, and the screen asked for a new 6-digit code. Updated security, she said, grabbing it quickly. IT warned us about phishing. I nodded. Smart. But the moment stuck with me. How fast she'd taken the phone. The flicker in her eyes when she realized I'd seen the lock screen. Then the business trips started multiplying. For most of our marriage, Lacey averaged 3 or 4 trips a year. Conferences, client meets, always well-planned and spaced apart. But lately, they came more frequently, more spontaneously. Last-minute flights to Jacksonville, Miami, Dallas. The company's expanding, she explained. Lots of travel now. The first time, I congratulated her. The third time, I asked why I hadn't heard about the expansion before. It's early stage, she said. Confidential. The fifth time, I stopped asking. Then came the nights she came home smelling wrong. Lacey didn't smoke. Hated it, actually. She used to cross the street to avoid it. So when I hugged her one night and caught the faint scent of tobacco on her jacket, my mind immediately jumped to secondhand smoke. Elevator, maybe. Cab driver. Something. But then it happened again. And again. Once it was cologne. Strong, masculine, unfamiliar. Another time it was red wine, even though she'd texted earlier about being too tired to drink. Each time I told myself it didn't matter. She was tired. I was overthinking. We were both just busy. But the more I looked, the more patterns emerged. I started noticing how often she mentioned certain names. Marcus said the client feedback was great. Kyle thinks we might get a second round. Nate offered to drive me to the airport. They were all male. All coworkers, supposedly. I'd ask, who's Marcus again? Oh, just a guy from the Tampa office. Which one's Kyle? He's new. I think I told you about him. No? Maybe she had. Maybe I hadn't listened closely enough. But it started to feel like I wasn't supposed to listen. Like the details were intentionally thin, the answers rehearsed just enough to pacify but never enough to satisfy. The doubt didn't come all at once. It crept in, slow and quiet, like a draft under a door. And it changed me. I became someone I didn't recognize. I started checking the call log when she showered. I glanced at her calendar app when she left her tablet open. I took mental notes of her outfits when she left for trips, what jewelry she packed, which heels she chose. I hated myself for it. But I hated the not knowing more. One night, lying awake in bed while she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and tried to count how many lies you could fit into a 10-year marriage before it started to split at the seams. I didn't come up with a number. Just silence. And fear. The kind of fear that wraps around your chest and makes you question whether everything you've built is already gone. It wasn't just the photo anymore. It was everything. The cumulative weight of months of quiet red flags, of smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes, of kisses that felt more routine than real. I thought about asking her, really asking her. Sitting her down and saying, I saw the photo. I don't believe your story. Tell me what's going on. But something inside me held back. Not because I was afraid of the answer, but because I already knew it. Doubt can drive you crazy. Proof gives you clarity. It might break you, but at least it breaks you clean. After weeks of second-guessing myself, of analyzing every word Lacey said like it was a code to be cracked, I finally decided I couldn't live like that anymore. I needed to know. Not wonder, not assume. I needed confirmation. So I did what I never imagined myself doing in a marriage built on vows and 10 years of memories. I started investigating my wife. It began small. A phone check here, a glance at her planner there. But Lacey was careful. Her call logs were clean. Her social media hadn't changed. Her calendar was perfectly managed, maybe too perfectly. So I went deeper. One Thursday morning, after she left for a client brunch, I slid under her car with a GPS tracker I'd bought online. Small. Undetectable. Synced to my phone. It took less than 5 minutes, and when I stepped back into the garage, heart pounding, I already felt the shift in power. Later that night, I waited for her to fall asleep before opening her laptop. She'd left it unlocked, for once, maybe forgetting, maybe careless. Either way, I took it as a sign. I didn't go for her emails. Those would be scrubbed, I was sure. Instead, I opened her cloud storage, Google Drive, synced to her phone, her tablet, everything. She used it for backups, old project files, client decks. I didn't find work files. What I found were folders with names like May Trip and Florida Notes. I opened one. Inside were dozens of photos, candids, selfies, some taken clearly by someone else. Lacey laughing on a hotel bed. Eating pancakes across from the same man from the pool photo. Sitting in a robe, feet curled beneath her, hair still damp from the shower. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was a relationship. The dates were recent, just days ago. And the locations matched her travel claims, except she wasn't in Jacksonville like she said. The GPS tracker confirmed it. Instead of checking into a downtown hotel, she'd driven 3 hours south and parked at a lakeside motel called Oak Haven Inn. It wasn't a business suite. It was a couple's getaway. I opened another folder. More pictures. Her and him, walking down a wooden pier, arms linked. Drinking wine on a deck. A blurry image of them dancing indoors, lit by string lights, heads pressed close together like no one else existed. I backed out and opened her messages. There, in her draft folder, were unsent emails. Dozens of them. All written to him. I miss you already. I wish I could wake up next to you instead of pretending here. You make me feel seen in ways I didn't even realize I was missing. I hate lying, but I can't stop. I'm not ready to give him up, but I'm not ready to let you go either. I didn't know what hurt more, the words or the fact that they'd been written over time, across weeks and months. She'd had chances to end it. Opportunities to pull back. But instead, she doubled down. She built something with this man. Not just lust. Not just S***X. Emotion. In * Macy. Plans. And there it was, the nail in the coffin. She wasn't confused. She was committed. I closed the laptop slowly like I was handling something dangerous. My pulse pounded in my ears. My chest felt hollow. The kind of hollow that doesn't come from anger, it comes from knowing everything you believed in has officially died. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there at the dining room table, staring at nothing, trying to process how I'd ended up here, how the woman I'd built a life with had managed to hide an entirely different one behind my back. When she came downstairs the next morning, smiling like nothing had changed, I almost laughed. She leaned over to kiss my cheek, and I forced myself not to recoil. "How'd you sleep?" she asked, grabbing her travel mug. "Fine," I said, keeping my voice level. "You headed out?" "Yeah, morning meeting with finance. Might run a little long." I nodded. "Take your time." She gave me a quick smile and was gone. My phone buzzed an hour later. The GPS showed her car parked at the same motel as last time. Same room number. Same man. I sat at the window for a long time, watching the street, watching the world go on like everything was fine. Like my life hadn't just collapsed in slow motion. But this time I felt something else brewing underneath the devastation. Focus. This wasn't the end. Not yet. This was only the part where the truth stopped being a secret. Now came the part where I decided what to do with it. I didn't confront her right away. That would have been too easy. Too dramatic. And in a twisted way, too generous. No, this wasn't going to be a yelling match in the kitchen or a tear-soaked confession on the couch. If she had spent months crafting a lie, I was going to spend time crafting the truth. Not just for me. For everyone. I spent the weekend planning. The kind of planning that required silence, patience, and precision. I started with the data. I organized every image from her cloud into labeled folders: date, location, timestamp. I compiled *TS of GPS pings from the tracker, every stop she made, every deviation from her supposed schedule. I laid it all out like a court case: Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C. Then came the messages. The drafts she'd written to him but never sent, maybe out of guilt or maybe because he didn't need them. I read each one again, slower this time, highlighting phrases that screamed betrayal louder than any physical act could. Her admissions, her longing, her plans to keep this going. Her strategy. Her lies. Once it was all organized, I went further. I contacted a friend of mine, Jordan, a low-key IT consultant who owed me a favor from a few years back when I helped him move. I asked him if he could help me set up a secure site, just a private link, nothing public. "Photos and *TS, he asked. "Exactly," I said. "I need a presentation. Seamless. Simple. Undeniable." He didn't ask questions. In a few hours, I had a custom landing page, password protected, cleanly organized. You clicked a thumbnail and it opened a full-resolution image. You hovered over a route on the map and a tooltip displayed the date and time. When it was done, I stared at the screen for a long time. This was my truth. Cold. Silent. Proof that didn't yell or accuse or cry. It just sat there, irrefutable. I felt empty staring at it, but also lighter. As if the burden I'd been carrying had finally found its shape. Then I made the guest list. I wanted the impact to be surgical. So I crafted the perfect occasion, an event Lacey couldn't refuse. I told her I wanted to throw a surprise celebration for her recent contract expansion, something to honor her contributions at the firm. We'd invite coworkers, clients, a few local media contacts who'd done features on her team in the past. Something glossy, professional. At first, she looked skeptical. "You want to throw a party for me?" I nodded. "Why not? You've earned it." She tilted her head. "That's actually really sweet." I smiled. I told her it would be hosted at the old conservatory downtown, refurbished last year into a modern event space with sleek glass walls and ambient lighting. I had a friend who managed bookings there. I reserved it for Friday night, a week out. Lacey offered to help. I told her no. It's your night, I said. Let me handle the details. And I did. I booked a small catering team. Light hors d'oeuvres. Champagne. The works. I sent out personalized invites to her coworkers. CC'd the director who oversaw her department. A couple of the firm's key clients. I even contacted a local business columnist she'd mentioned before. Everyone RSVP'd quickly. Lacey was well-liked, admired even. A rising star. And the man? The one from the photo? He was invited too, under the guise of a key partner in client integration. When Friday came, the event was perfect. Every detail. The hall buzzed with conversation and laughter as people filed in, wine glasses clinking, music humming softly through the speakers. Lacey arrived in a red dress I'd never seen before, tight in the waist, bold on her shoulders. She kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "You really did all this?" "Every bit," I said. Her eyes glimmered. For a moment, watching her work the room, I almost forgot what was coming. I almost forgot the rage that had lived inside me for weeks. But then I saw him. The man. Standing by the refreshment table, chatting with two guys in dress shirts and sneakers, perfectly at ease. It came back like a wave. And I waited. Halfway through the evening, I stood near the front of the room and tapped a champagne flute with a fork. The sound rang out crisp and clear. People quieted. Heads turned. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice steady. "It means a lot to Lacey and to me. We've gathered to celebrate her remarkable work this year. The firm's growth, the outreach, the projects she's led, these things don't happen by accident." Soft clapping. I waited, then continued. "And tonight, I wanted to offer something a little more personal. A glimpse not just into the results, but into the journey." The projector behind me came to life. At first, it showed what they expected, photos of her at conferences, team lunches, brand launches. Then, slowly, it changed. One image, Lacey in a poolside chair, wine in hand, the man's arm around her waist. Another, their GPS trail along the lakeside road, complete with timestamps. Then the motel. The pier. The text drafts. A scrolling view of one particularly damning message. "I hate lying, but I can't stop. I'm not ready to give him up, but I'm not ready to let you go either." The room went silent. Completely. I didn't say anything else. Didn't look at her. The slideshow ended and the screen went black. People began to shift, murmur, look at one another in disbelief. I set down the remote, adjusted my jacket, and stepped off the platform. And then I walked out. No speech. No accusations. No breakdowns. Just silence. Precision. The message had been delivered. There was nothing left to say. They say silence is the loudest form of confrontation, and judging by the aftermath, mine echoed louder than any accusation ever could. I didn't return home after the event. I stayed with my brother, who didn't ask many questions. He didn't need to. The story was already spreading. That night, the first domino fell. By morning, the firm's internal Slack channels were lighting up. *TS from the presentation circulated like wildfire. Someone had filmed the entire thing, shaky footage from the back row, but clear enough to catch the photos, the GPS trail, and the drafts on the screen. Lacey's name was tagged. People reposted it on burner accounts, sharing it with hashtags, using phrases like corporate scandal and HR's worst nightmare. By noon, the director of operations had launched an internal investigation. Lacey's name was now listed in connection with inappropriate conduct involving external partners. That's how they labeled him too, external partner. I almost laughed when I saw the memo. The same man who kissed her by a motel pool, who shared pancakes with her in bed, who walked hand in hand down a lakeside pier, now a threat to brand alignment and shareholder optics. It was strange watching it all unravel from a distance. Lacey tried to get ahead of it at first. I heard she spoke to HR the next morning, spinning a narrative about a personal misunderstanding and digital manipulation. But the images weren't doctored. The timestamps weren't guesswork. The metadata backed it all up. Even the IT department confirmed everything was traced from her company-issued devices. She couldn't deny it anymore. All she could do was damage control. But control had slipped. The man who, I finally learned, was named Evan had already been quietly dropped from future contracts. His firm posted a vague statement about restructuring commitments and refocusing partnerships. In other words, he was radioactive now. By the third day, Lacey's LinkedIn went dark. She disabled comments. Then she deleted the entire profile. Her Instagram followed. Then Twitter. Then Facebook. It was like she was trying to erase herself before the internet could do it for her. But the internet doesn't forget. I got calls too. Some from mutual friends. Others from colleagues who had attended the event and weren't sure how to react. A few left voicemails offering support, apologies, awkward sympathy. I didn't answer any of them. The silence that had once been my revenge now became my shield. Lacey, meanwhile, was imploding. She tried texting me first short messages like, please, and can we talk? Then longer ones, paragraphs full of justifications and panic. You don't understand the pressure I was under. I was lonely. I thought you didn't notice me anymore. This wasn't supposed to go that far. I never meant for you to find out like this. Like there was a right way to find out your wife had created a parallel life without you. She emailed too. Then tried calling from her work number, which I blocked. Then her mother's. Blocked again. And when the call stopped, she showed up. It was Wednesday morning when I saw her car pull up in front of the house. I watched from the window, heart steady, body calm. She sat there for a while, engine idling. Then she stepped out looking smaller than I remembered. Not physically, she was still trim, still polished, but the confidence was gone. Her posture had changed. Her face looked tighter. Hello. She rang the doorbell twice. I didn't move. She waited another 10 minutes, then slid a letter through the mail slot. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. The last thing I wanted was more words. Actions had said enough. Later, I saw her name trending in a private forum for regional marketing professionals. Someone had leaked the full presentation file. Others chimed in with commentary dissecting every frame. A few expressed horror. Most were captivated. A handful criticized me, saying the move was too public or vindictive. But I didn't care. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. Plain. Unvarnished. Served cold. Lacey tried reaching out to her network, but the responses were minimal. Her name had become too complicated. Too risky. She'd once been someone people attached themselves to in hopes of advancement. Now, her association brought questions. The firm gave her a choice: resign quietly with a separation package or endure a prolonged review that would likely end in termination. She resigned. 3 weeks after the event, her name disappeared from the company's site. No statement. No farewell post. Just gone. And still, I said nothing. Not publicly. Not privately. She sent one last text days after her resignation. You won. I hope you're happy. That one made me pause. Not because it hurt, but because it showed how little she understood. This wasn't about winning. There was no trophy. No celebration. No feeling of triumph. Only truth. Only the slow, steady freedom that came from no longer living in a lie. That was all I ever wanted. And now I had it. It could have ended there. Lacey was gone professionally and personally. The fallout had scorched everything, and all that was left were embers. I thought that was the final page. The story of betrayal written, read, and closed. Then I found the messages. They weren't from Lacey. They were from Megan, her former maid of honor, college roommate, and supposed best friend. One of the few people who had stood beside us on our wedding day, smiling in photos that now looked like lies. I was sorting through old files, preparing for the inevitable divorce proceedings, when I found a backup of an older phone. Lacey's, most likely. Among the clutter of messages, *TS, and synced data, I found a thread between her and Megan. At first, it seemed harmless, 2 women gossiping about work, fashion, travel. But then I saw Evan's name. And everything shifted again. Megan had known. Not just recently, but from the beginning. She'd been in on it, offering advice, cover stories, even helping Lacey plan trips around my schedule. There was a sick casualness in their tone, like it was all a game. If he ever checks your location, just say you're with me. Men like Noah never notice details. You deserve some fun. He's always so serious. They'd mocked me. My predictability. My trust. One message from Megan read, "Don't worry. I'll distract him if it comes up. And later, you and Evan are perfect together. Just don't get caught." I sat there staring at the screen, my hands trembling, not from sadness this time, but from the pure, bitter clarity of it all. Megan had been in our home. At our dinners. She toasted our anniversaries, clinked glasses, laughed at my jokes. All the while, she'd known. And the final blow? A recent photo. Megan and Evan. Together. Arm in arm at a winery upstate, posted quietly on Megan's private account, buried beneath a caption that read, "New chapter." I didn't feel rage. Not anymore. Just resignation. They'd all gotten what they wanted. And now they had each other. Without a word, I forwarded the messages to my attorney and made a final note: push for everything. The house. The car. The investments I brought in before the marriage. Lacey would walk away with less than she thought and even less than she deserved. That night, I sent a final message to both Lacey and Megan. One line. No punctuation. You deserve each other. And then I blocked them both. After the legal dust settled, I left Georgia behind. There was nothing left for me there, only memories that had curdled. I sold what I didn't need, packed what I did, and moved to a quiet beach town in South Carolina. A place with slower mornings and fewer ghosts. I found a small house near the harbor. White trim. A garden someone else had already given up on. It needed work and I needed something to work on. A fair trade. I picked up part-time teaching at a local technical school, intro courses in aeronautical engineering. The kids were sharp, eager, honest in ways adults rarely are. It reminded me of who I used to be before the world complicated everything. Days fell into rhythm. Coffee in the morning, lessons in the afternoon, long walks by the docks when the sun started its descent. It was quiet, unremarkable, exactly what I wanted. Lacey's name stopped circling in my mind. So did Megan's. So did Evan's. They belonged to a version of life that no longer had space in mine. People sometimes ask if I miss her. I don't. Not really. I miss the idea of her. The person I thought she was. The home I thought we had. But even that fades, piece by piece, like waves smoothing sharp edges of broken glass. Now, I live simply. I breathe deeper. I trust slower. But I'm whole again. And that's more than I ever thought I'd be.